All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Just want to introduce myself. I'm Ed Schreiner. I'm a supervising planner with the Environmental Services Department with the City of San Jose. Also on the call with me today is my colleague Hannah Greenberg, who's kind of manage logistics and Q&A and things like that. And as well, we also have our consultant on this effort, which is Cal Silcox, and he'll assist me with any kind of technical questions. So just to make sure everyone's in the right place, we are talking about the City of San Jose's REACH code for electric vehicle infrastructure in new multifamily developments. This is our second engagement effort of the week. Just quickly, here's what we're going to go through, the rationale between why we're doing this, how the process has gone so far, what the goals are of our proposed REACH code, and then we'll have kind of an open forum Q&A opportunity at the end of the session. However, there is a Q&A function. Feel free to enter any questions you have in whenever you want. If some of my colleagues can answer them while we're presenting, they'll go ahead and do that. Otherwise, we'll go over them at the end of the session. All right, so this EV REACH code update, why are we doing this? Well, I guess within the past, roughly 2 years ago, the San Jose City Council adopted a carbon neutrality by 2030 goal, basically that the city would add zero net carbon emissions to the atmosphere by 2030. Currently, over half of the carbon emissions produced within the city of San Jose come from our transportation sector. So a key strategy in trying to affect that is to provide incentives for more zero emission vehicles on the road. And based on our existing power grid, most EVs or electric vehicles are essentially zero emission vehicles. In addition, the state of California is actually requiring all new automobile sales to be zero emission cars by 2035. So that the trend, in the next decade is going to be towards more and more EVs on the road. And we're already seeing that, as within the past year, we've seen that 30% of new vehicles registered in the city have been for electric vehicles. Currently, how people are charging those electric vehicles is largely at their home overnight. Over 80% of the charging needs are currently met in that way. And that's largely occurring in single family residences. So what we are trying to accomplish here is to provide more capacity and more ability for people who do not live in single family residences, who live in apartments or condominiums, to be able to access EV charging and be able to take advantage of the same opportunities as single family residents. It is important to note that our current REACH code, which was developed in 2019 and implemented in January of 2020, does require EV charging infrastructure for 100% of all parking spaces. However, it doesn't actually provide guaranteed charging access in all those spaces, and I'll kind of explain what that means a little more when we're going through some of the definitions. So this has actually been going on for roughly a year and a half now, beginning in April of 2022, when we were given direction by the City Council to provide a cost analysis on how we could provide 100% EV access for new multifamily development. We've done a number of rounds of outreach previously on this. Some of you may have been involved with that back in November of last year and in February of this year. initially trying to get to City Council in the spring. However, there were concerns about the potential cost implications of this. So the city did additional efforts to create a cost analysis model and worked directly with some local developers to kind of truth that model. And we've come to what we believe is a appropriate proposal at this point. And we wanted to move forward with it and get this to City Council by November of this year. And this is the second in a series of 3 webinars that are happening this week. So some definitions for people who are maybe less familiar with what we're talking about. And some of these will be mentioned. Some of them are kind of in our existing code. But they're essentially all electric vehicle parking spaces are broken down into 3 different categories. The first category is what's called an EV capable parking space. That means that there is a conduit to the parking space in which wiring could be placed through, but is not in a capable space. There is no wiring there and there is no plug. In addition, the requirement is that for an EV capable space, there has to be the electrical capacity. So the panel and transformer needs to be sized properly for the future development of EV parking spaces there. The second category is what's called EV ready, or plug and play, where essentially there is wiring to the parking space, and additionally there's a plug. So if a person has basically their own charger for their vehicle, they can plug in at the space and charging can be provided at the space. And the third category is EV supply equipment, or sometimes EVCS. And this means there's an actual charging equipment installed in the space. So any electric vehicle could pull into the space and simply plug in and charge. A few additional definitions here. We have what's called an automated load management system, or ALMS. This allows for power sharing across multiple charging stations. Essentially what this means is that if there's only one car charging at any specific time, it could basically charge with the full 40 amp power. However, if multiple cars are charging at once, that power would be divided among the multiple cars, and they would charge slower, but generally with enough power to get the additional charge that they need to cover their commute or whatever travel needs they need for the next day. We'll refer to a networked EV system, which means that the charging network can actually be accessed remotely and managed remotely, and you can essentially choose, like with a phone app or something like that, when you want your vehicle to charge. That way you can kind of make sure that you're charging the vehicle at the best when electric rates are the lowest, so you can get kind of the most efficient charging economically for your EV. And the last definition here is what's called LP, or low power. And this is a 20 amp charger, which is about half the size of what our current REACH code requires, which is 40 amp charger, but does provide cost savings due to reductions in the overall electrical capacity required in the transformer and the electrical panel, while at the same time providing more than enough charging capacity to cover more than cover the average commuter's daily mileage. So what are the goals of this effort, this EV REACH code update? Number one, we do understand that currently in the San Francisco Bay Area, construction costs are very high, and in many cases, um, so high that essentially new projects are really hard to actually pencil out financially. So we're trying to avoid adding any additional costs to development by updating this EV Reach code. At the same time, we want to provide as much EV charging access to each multifamily household as possible. As I mentioned before, currently it's much single family homeowners generally have much easier access to EV charging, and we want to really spread that more to multifamily households as well. And thirdly, we want to try to keep the actual cost of charging to the multifamily residents as low as possible as well. So just a quick summary. Obviously, this isn't a technical document, but this is a quick summary of what our proposed EV Reach code is going to include. It is including 100% charging access to all parking spaces. So there would be a plug at every parking space, but at a slightly requiring the lower level 2 charging outlets, the 20 amp outlets installed. New state code updates are going to require direct wiring between a parking space and its assigned dwelling unit, unless that's deemed to be infeasible. And this would help ensure that the resident is able to access the cheapest possible electric rates for an EV vehicle charging. In addition, however, in cases where parking is not assigned to a unit, the requirement would be that there would need to be some kind of network plug at the space rather than being directly wired to a unit. In addition, for any multifamily residential property that includes some component of guest or visitor parking, 20% of those spaces would need to have charging equipment installed on them. And the intention is that this new code would go into effect January of next year. So just a quick background, I discussed this briefly earlier on. The city has done kind of a model cost analysis for the proposed Reach code. Obviously, developments vary widely in San Jose, and all, as a result, costs will vary significantly. But this cost analysis assumes a 100-unit multifamily dwelling with a parking space for each unit and a building size of roughly 150,000 square feet, and includes upstream and downstream equipment. So that includes meter, transformer, and trenching, as well as the electrical panel and charging equipment costs, but does not include soft costs such as permitting fees or site-specific costs like interest and financing paid on the property. So this is just our kind of a snapshot of the model analysis that we did. Basically, the most pertinent part of this proposal is the row that's outlined in red on the bottom, which shows what the percentage of the total construction is, or the percentage cost of the total construction is made up of the EV infrastructure. And basically, we've broken these down into 5 different columns. The first column being what our existing Reach code is right now. The second column being what our existing Reach code right now, so we make no changes, will be once the new state code goes into effect in next July, and that's the update to Cal Green, which will require the direct wiring. So again, if we don't change anything, the second column is what will be in effect by next year. And then the last three columns are what we're proposing, showing slightly different iterations of possibilities. Number one being if all parking spaces are specifically assigned to units. So there's the direct wiring. The fourth column being if all parking is unbundled, which means that parking spaces are not assigned to units and the residents can choose to purchase parking spaces in addition to the rent for their unit. And the third is the last one, the fifth column is similar to the fourth column, but also including some amount of guest parking. So there's some additional costs due to additional EV equipment required to be installed in some of the spaces. And as you can see, with what our proposal EV reach code is it's a slightly less percentage than what our current one is. So there will be a small cost savings to developers, and ultimately down the line to the residents as well, with this updated EV reach code, as it drops from 1.12% of the total project cost to just a smidge over 1% of the total project cost, or even 0.75%, depending on how the parking is done. So this kind of concludes the conversation, just updating you all. We're in the second of three public webinars. The last one, which is tomorrow and aimed more at development professionals and occurring at 1 to 2 p.m. We're requesting any additional comments, questions to be submitted by September 15th. So just about a week and a half away. And then we are planning to bring this to City Council by November 14th. And here's contact information. You can email me at climatesmart@sanjoseca.gov with any additional questions.